Joining us now with reaction is Anastasia Tonello from the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Anastasia, I'm sure you disagree with a lot of what I said there, and I'll just let you comment.
Well, as I explained earlier, a lot of the comments are on the political climate, on economics. I'll limit my comments to the immigration laws, and happy to discuss the policies and how those are being.
Okay, so you're telling us what you won't talk about, but let's talk about why there has been, and I think we have a graphic to illustrate this, a tenfold increase in the claims for asylum coming out of these Northern Triangle countries, especially Honduras. Asylum requests increased tenfold between 2009 and 2016. Why do you think that is?
Again, I mean, there are issues in those countries. There's a lot of political unrest. There have been, just traditionally, there were, as a result of deportations, a lot of the prisoners that were in gangs in LA and were deported have taken advantage of political chaos in those countries and were able to take advantage of systems, which leads to violence. We see a lot of these asylum seekers are women, they are children. So
a lot of them aren't. I mean, a lot of them are women and children, and they're obviously incredibly sympathetic, and we want nothing but good things to happen to all people who want a better life for their families. But the question is, under our current law, and you're an expert as an immigration lawyer. I actually did one immigration case when I was a defense attorney, believe it or not. But the asylum laws require a credible fear of persecution. Yet, in the surveys that have been done of these migrants in transit or when they're being deported back home, they overwhelmingly state that their concern is an economic one. And you can't blame them. You know, it's hard to make a life in Guatemala or El Salvador. I've spent a lot of time in both countries, and they're beautiful countries with rotten governments. But right now, we have a situation where we have hundreds of thousands of cases backlogged in our immigration courts, and frankly, we're all out of personnel, and we're all out of money as far as processing this. So how would you balance those concerns of the United States with our own homeless problem, our own veterans on the streets problems, our opioid crisis, the schools are being overcrowded, with the desires of foreigners to come here for a better life?
I mean, I think earlier you were talking about the corruption in Honduras and these kind of demands put on these officials. And I think that what's incredibly important in all of this is the rule of law, is due process. Where America, the Constitution is very strong. We have very clear guidance and rules on what we expect to give as far as legal process and procedure. So that is something that I don't think we should compromise on, and I don't think we should pick and choose who gets due process. It's a fundamental part of our Constitution.
Right. Well, yeah, it's a fundamental concern for Americans that we have borders that are actually enforced and laws that are not gamed by attorneys who go down to Mexico or go down to Central America and literally coach people as to how to make their case and make their claim. It goes from representation to advocacy for policy change or advocacy for entrance into the United States, despite the fact that a lot of these lawyers don't know much of anything about the background of these migrants. I want to play a soundbite for you from our Homeland Security Secretary about who else is trying to gain access to America. Let's watch.
Border security is national security. And what we see at the Department of Homeland Security, we see 15 terrorists either planning to travel or actually traveling to the United States each day, known as suspected terrorists. So that means they're coming through our legal land, port, and air.
Are you concerned about that, that in these caravans, I mean, again, that's a drop in the bucket compared to the thousands upon thousands of people who have been processed into our country since last October, but it's the visual image, I think, that gets a lot of people. But are you concerned that in the mix of people both crossing illegally and presenting themselves to border officials, that terrorists will take advantage of this massive humanity?
I believe that we should have borders that applications should be processed, that people should have their cases reviewed when they are presenting themselves for entry to the United States, but I also believe in smart borders. I believe that a lot of this information is intelligence-based, that we have access to information on who's traveling and how they're coming in. And so I think that...
Well, it takes only one person, though, right, Anastasia? It takes one person to gain access to our country. And we already know about all the stories of, now Somalis. Some Somalis have tried to, I guess, gain access to the caravan, maybe exploit people within the caravan, which is also heartbreaking. And so we know they game the system. They gamed it on 9/11. They've gamed it before, trying to come into our country in planes and with shoes that explode. And if it's a porous border with crushes of people coming at one time, that's the logical place for them to enter. And I know you're not a policymaker, but when we have lawyers rushing down to Mexico to make the case for asylum for people, again, that, you can't check the background on most of these people. Most of these people are, they're poor people with, what are you going to go to, like the local town hall in Honduras and do a background check on every client? You're not going to be able to do that, are you?
But there are background checks, and we do have very smart intelligence capabilities. So if there are people on watch lists, if there's people that we're concerned about...
Yeah, not everyone's on a watch list. Yeah, well, not everyone's on a watch list, but I understand your point. And look, lawyers are there to argue the case for their clients, and these happen to be pro bono clients for all these migrants that are trying to cross the border. Anastasia, we really appreciate your coming on to explain your case and your perspective here. A lot of the lawyers down in Mexico are, frankly, not interested in coming on to explain themselves, and you really advanced it. Thank you so much.